Is this the right boat for you? The answer is going to vary depending on what kind of sailing are you planning on doing. If you're looking for a boat for a weekend sailor or a club racer, is going to be a little bit different than somebody that wants to do a transatlantic crossing on a sailboat. So I'm going to try to help you answer some of those questions by giving you some practical information related to this boat. I'm on board a beautiful 2024 Jeanneau Sun Odyssey 410. Over the next series of videos, I'll cover different sizes and types of boats, including catamarans, to give you a perspective of, as a sailor on a day-to-day use of the boat, what are some of the things that you need to think about. So with that, let's get started. Let's start with the basic. Everybody wants a bathroom, correct? Now, the heads on boats come in two flavors. One is a wet head and one is a dry head. The wet head means that whenever you take a shower, the whole floor of the bathroom is going to get wet. A dry head means that you can take a shower without getting everything else on the head soaking wet. Here's another important consideration when you're talking about heads. People shower very little on the heads that come with their boats. Now, let's be realistic. Whenever you're out at sea and you're cruising, chances of you taking a shower in the head, in the head, are slight to very, very slim. Unless you're in a cold climate where it's too cold to jump in the water, typically what you're going to do is you're going to jump overboard, back here on the back of the boat. You're going to come out. You're going to soap up with Joy, Mr. Bubbles, whatever you like to use to clean yourself up. You're going to jump back in the water, and then you're going to use the outside shower to basically just rinse off the salt water, and you're done. You're clean. It's what's going to conserve the most amount of water when you're out cruising. And water is a limited resource on a sailboat, which you have to keep in mind. This is what your shower looks like when it's tucked away. You have hot and cold on the faucet and your hose. And then you have a nice cover to keep it all tucked away. Now, if you happen to be at a marina where you have water accessible and you want to take long showers, you can use your head. But if you notice, there is no divider on the floor of the boat. So whenever you're taking a shower, water is going to come and get pretty much everything wet. Now, for somebody like me, so if I was going to take a shower on this head, things to consider is I'm a big guy. So all of the doors inside of a boat are going to be smaller. So you're going to, unless you're really skinny, you can walk straight through. If not, you're going to turn sideways to get in. Now, once inside, on this particular boat, I have a door. And the door basically keeps water from splashing into the toilet area. So I'm in the shower stall. You can see the shower up here. It's a hose, so you can move it. And you have your sink, where is the source of the water. And here's where you open and close the water for the shower, and that's for your sink. But if you can see my feet, I'm standing inside, but there's a gap underneath the door. So water is still going to run out, but it won't run out into the cabin. So while having the door is a nice add-on on this shower, basically it doesn't keep the water out of the head. So this is a wet head, regardless of how you look at it. What it does, though, is if somebody wants to use the toilet while you're taking a shower, you can keep water splashing to a minimum. This is a full-size toilet, which are very nice. In older boats, you're going to have something that's about 2/3 of that. And you have electric flush, which is kind of nice. Now, this boat has two heads. So let's go check out the head on the master stateroom. So in here, you're going to have the same scenario. Hi. So you have to step in, close the door, Once this door is closed, you have your shower area next to your sink with your hose, and you have the glass door that you can close, but you're still going to have the gap in the bottom. So again, what these doors are doing is just keeping water from going into the toilet if you have somebody that's using it, keeping the toilet paper dry, which goes right there. But in reality, you're quickly going to find out that most sailors shower outside of the boat. Now, the other aspect of the bathroom, I'm going to call it the bathroom, even though we call it a head at sea, is the toilet. And all of the waste that goes in the toilet has to go into a holding tank when you are inside of 3 miles from shore. You cannot drop your business outside of the boat as you're sailing, only after you have gone out 3 miles or more. So you have a holding tank, and if you're doing coastal cruising, meaning staying within 3 miles of shore, you're going to have to carry that with you. And I'll talk about the numbers in a little bit so you know how many times you can use the bathroom or how many days before you fill up your tank. So without that, with other things that create a limitation, or it's going to give you a specific range for your boat or the boat that you're looking at, is the water capacity. Why? Because you use water for drinking, you use water for washing, you use water for showering. If you have a fresh water toilet, you're using fresh water to flush your toilet, and you use water to do your dishes. So understanding how much water you're going to consume on a trip is important because you want to conserve as much water as you possibly can. Let's talk about another aspect of sailing, which is your galley, where you're going to cook, you're going to eat. So let's talk about that first. So key considerations with the galley is how much room do I have to store food? How much refrigeration capacity do I have? And what kind of a stove do I have available for cooking? Because more than likely, on probably 90% of the boats, they're going to come with a propane stove. On some modern boats, they're starting to put more induction because there's more battery capacity available. But let's say, for the sake of argument, it's all going to be propane. So let's take a look at this boat and see what we got. So from a storage capacity, the Lagoon 410 has this nice slide-on storage shelf, and it has an additional shelf on top. It has additional storage shelving on this side of the galley, and it has a very deep locker to store additional stores. Now, when you're cruising, you also have a spot down here for pots and pans. On this particular boat, you're going to have a 2-burner stove. Sometimes they come 3, sometimes they come 4, with an oven. And it's all propane, so if you cook every day, you can figure your tank is probably going to last you, depending on how long you cook, let's say on a good side, let's say 20 days. The next thing to talk about is the refrigerator. This is a 6.3 cubic feet refrigerator, and it has a little freezer area here, not very big. So you're not going to be able to have 20 pounds of steaks and pork chops and things like that stored in here frozen. So you're probably going to have some goods on this particular boat, or you may get an external freezer to keep frozen foods. You have a lot of storage, and in this boat they did a very nice job of putting slider baskets, which can be removed, so you can get to the bottom of the fridge. And we'll talk about the numbers here in a sec. So keeping food refrigerated and packed, you have to be smart about how you buy your food. So knowing that refrigerator space is limited, you probably don't want to buy gallons of milk or gallons of orange juice or things like that. You probably want to buy a smaller size, either concentrate juices if you want to have them, or dry milk, either powder or non-refrigerated milk, because those are the things that are going to take the most amount of space. So you get a plan for how much food can you actually fit in there, and I'm going to do a by the number section here in a few minutes. So with the limited capacity on the refrigerator, you want to be smart about how you buy your food and what food you buy that needs refrigeration and what food you can get dry goods. So a lot of canned goods, powder milk, or milk that doesn't need refrigeration that can be stored on a cabinet. And as far as the meats, you're going to pick, the things that are going to fit or do, if you're doing uh, So for the meats, meat that you're going to use right away, you can probably keep on the fridge side. Meat that's going to sit for several days, you want to put on the freezer. So you have to be smart about what kind of food you get. If you're going to be fishing and eating fresh fish as you cruise, then that's phenomenal. Basically, you catch it, you clean it, you eat it, and you're done with it. You don't have to store it. So I'll have a section by the numbers here shortly. Comfort at sea is going to be important because you're going to be sleeping on the boat. So on some boats, you're going to have what's called a centerline berth, which means that you can crawl in from both sides of the bed. On other boats, is because of the design, you're not going to have that option. You're going to be climbing through the foot of the bed to lay down. So let me show you how that shows up on this particular boat. So on the Jeanneau 410, you have a step to climb up, but you don't have any room on the side. So you're going to be crawling in bed, from the foot up. Now you have space to put your books or maybe put some water at night. You have privacy windows, so you can slide those to create more privacy. And you have storage at the head of the bed. But this is going to be a bed where you're going to be crawling in from the foot of the bed. You're not going to be able to get around. Same applies on the aft cabins. You're going to be crawling into bed from the long end of the bed. You can see it on both sides. Now, it's going to be comfortable. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just, different. Every boat is going to have. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just for the design of the boat, they chose to set the cabin layout that way. So, again, you're crawling from the long side, and other boats are going to crawling from the side of the bed. It's going to be different on every boat. So, let's talk a little bit about the numbers. All right, folks, so let's talk a little bit about the numbers. This boat comes with a 140-gallon water tank. Now, water consumption when you're on a boat is very important because you have a limited resource. You want to take care of it. So on average, a male person, a man, should consume about a gallon of water per day. Women, they recommend 7/10 of a gallon per day. Let's just round it to everybody drinks a gallon per day. When you're taking showers, the way I described it earlier, let's say every person uses maybe, a little bit of a gallon of water or less. For dishwashing, which, you cook, you got to wash the pots and pans, you got to wash the dishes. You do it the same way you take a bath. You use salt water to get all the cleaning done, and you use fresh water for the final rinse, and then you put it away. So on average, a person is going to consume about 3.5 gallons of water per day. So if I have 140 gallons of water and I have 3.5 gallons of consumption, that's roughly going to give me about 40 days of capacity with that consumption ratio. Now, if it's two people, then it's going to be twice as much. So you're going to have only about 20 days of range with the water that you carry on the boat. Now, when we talk about fuel, and fuel is going to be different depending on the size of the engine, how much weight there is, the wind conditions, the current. So what I'm giving you is a very basic example. This boat comes equipped with a 52.8 gallon fuel tank. On average, if you're running the boat, you're not trying to gun it, you're running at average cruising speed, let's say about 6-7 knots, you're probably going to be consuming about 0.8 gallons per hour. So if you take your 52.8 gallons divided by your 0.8 consumption, it's going to give you about 66 hours of running time on that capacity. Now, if you're doing 6 knots, you're basically making 6 nautical miles per hour. Again, I'm generalizing. But let's say that on average you make six nautical miles per hour times 66 hours. that's going to give you a range of about 396 nautical miles. So if I'm going from Florida to Spain, and I think I'm gonna be, running on engine a portion of the time, that's a lot longer than 396 nautical miles. I probably want to take some additional fuel on jerry jogs, just as a spare, just in case. But for the most part, I will try to sail as much as possible to conserve. Now, let's talk about the holding tank situation. So everybody has to use the head, right? And using information I got from the RV crew, which they're pretty good on their measurements, they claim that you use about 2 gallons on your holding tank per person per day. Why? Because it's not just what you're putting in; it's also you have to flush it, and that's going to consume some water. So that water is going to go into the tank, and that's going to occupy space. This boat comes equipped with 50.1 gallons of holding tank capacity. So roughly at 2 gallons per day per person, one person would be able to continue to use the tank without pumping it out for about 25 days. If you have two people on the boat on the same capacity, you're going to have about 12 days, 12, 13 days. Now, if you're cruising outside of the 3 mile limit, meaning that you're going offshore 3 miles or more, you go into international waters, you can change your valve so your waste goes straight overboard. And if you have a macerator pump, you can pump your tanks overboard at that point. You cannot do that if you're inside of 3 miles in inland or coastal waters. So that means that if you're going around the intercoastal, if you're going around the coast of Florida, you have to keep it on the holding tank until you get to a facility where you can have it pumped out. The other thing that provides limits on a boat is your refrigerator. This boat comes with a 6.3 cubic foot refrigerator, roughly, and a consumption of, say, a quarter of a cubic foot per day per person. Let's say with a single person, that's going to give you about 25 days that you can carry on the refrigerator. If it's two of you, then figure is going to be about 12 to 13 days. Now, the reason you have to be smart about your groceries and your food stores is because of the limited space. You don't want to get things that are big. You don't want to buy a gallon of milk. You want to buy milk that doesn't need refrigeration. You may want to buy powdered milk. Instead of buying a gallon of orange juice, you may buy the small concentrate. So basically, you're making it and you're using it, and you don't have to, store it in a big container that takes a lot of space. So you have to plan your grocery shopping so you have more dry goods and more canned goods that you're going to take with you on your trips. If you have limited space, as I showed you earlier on the freezer, that means you're not going to be able to store a bunch of meat in there. So you have to plan what kind of meat you want to carry with you. And if you're going to be fishing, then you fish, you catch, you clean, you eat, and you start all over again the next day. So it's going to give you longevity or give you more time at sea if you're doing some of those things. So those are some of the considerations when it comes to by the numbers. Now, different boats are going to have different capacities. So I'm going to share the sheet that I used to come up with the numbers, and you basically put in the capacity of the tanks for the boat that you're looking at, and that'll give you a rough idea of what the range could be for that boat. If you're a person that you're going to be at sea just a couple of days, 2, 3, 4 days, and then you're going to be hitting a marina, then it doesn't become a big challenge because you can top off your water, top off your fuel, and pump out your head. So you basically resetting the clock on your trip and your capacity. So just some food for thought. So let me finish walking you around the boat and some other considerations for you. All right, folks, another consideration when you're looking to see if this is the right boat for you is to think about your cabin height. Now, this boat on this area of the salon has a 6'5" cabin height. So there's plenty of room. I'm 6 foot tall. So I have plenty of headroom. The reason that's important is because if you're too close to the liner, it's going to feel cramped. If it's lower, you're going to be hunching over, and that's not going to be good for your back. So you want to find a boat that you fit, meaning It's tall enough that to give you plenty of walking space. Now, the space on this boat, it has a declining cabin top. So when I get to the stateroom back here, I only have an inch because this is 6'1" on this side. So these are things to consider as you're evaluating the boat. Do you have plenty of sitting space? The sitting on the boat is also going to be important because you're probably going to spend most of your time here in the salon. On some boats, they give you, I'm sure some of you have seen the giant king size bed on the stern of the boat, and everybody's crazy about that. Reality is, you're not going to spend that much time back there. More than likely, you're going to spend most of your time here, or you're going to spend most of your time outside. And so, having the most amount of space available and having the sitting area to be comfortable on the salon is critical. Another important thing is sometimes if you're doing a passage or you're sailing for several days, you're going to be cooking while you're sailing. So having a galley where you can brace yourself, in this galley you have kind of a horseshoe U shape, so you can brace yourself while you're cooking. So you can lean back, cook. This is corian, so it's not going to burn. You can put stuff on top, and it'll make it nice and safe for the person that's down below that's doing the cooking. So another thing to think about. Your nav station is a nice area when you're sailing and you're trying to get out of the weather. You're trying to do some work on from inside of the boat. Uh, a lot of folks tend to put a chart plotter or a mirror down here so you can see what's happening with the course. If you have autopilot, you can control it from down below. So having a space to do that is important. This boat, this Jeanneau 410, has a beautiful nav station, very comfortable sitting. It's facing forward, so it's going to help you with not getting motion sickness if you're prone to that, because you're going to be moving with the boat and you're in line with the boat. So that's going to help you with that particular thing. Here you have the radio and you have tank monitors, your panel, and you can add a chart plotter or put a chart plotter station here so you can control what's happening up on top. Now the Jeanneau 410 is a dual helm boat. Now it doesn't mean that you have a spare. It means that you have two wheels to control the rudders. So as you turn, a wheel, they both match. So if I turn this wheel, you can see that one moving. So it's all coordinated. It doesn't mean you have a spare. It's just because the boat is so wide on the aft portion, when you sit down to sail, you want to be able to see what's happening around the sails. So by sitting as far to the edge as possible, you're going to be able to monitor what's happening up here. Now, something I love about this design is that they took what I'm going to call the catamaran ramp. So instead of having to having a weather deck that's even with the cockpit, so basically you have to step from the cockpit to the side here and into the weather deck. They gave you a ramp. So basically if I'm coming from the backside, I don't have to jump over anything. I just keep walking. Plenty of handrails to hang on to. And I get to my shrouds here. But I have easy access to move forward on the boat if I have to come here to deal with the spinnaker or with the anchor at any given point. So that was a very nice thing that Jeanneau did with their design of this particular boat, and also on the 49, they have the same ramp. So it makes it very easy to work your way up without having to climb over the backside, the coaming on the cockpit. On the sail plan for this boat, you're going to notice that this is an in-mess roller furling system for your main. Now, don't get fooled by the stories and the naysayers. They work perfectly fine. Usually if there's a problem with one of these, it's because there was user error or poor maintenance, one or the other. It had nothing to do with the design of the system. The nice thing about this setup is that it's going to give you unlimited reefing points, so you can make the sail very small if you're in heavy weather, or you can take it all the way to the back to give you plenty of canvas for light wind conditions. So very nice design. This here is, but you know, when with the low friction rings, instead of using blocks like on the standard boats. So it's a nice design. It's using Dyneema to build a frame, and then they use low friction blocks to create the loops to give you line controls. So this is for your sheets on your head sail. One thing they did good and bad on this particular boat is that they went aft with the shrouds. So that is fantastic. When you have this cables on the outside, it gives you room to walk through the weather deck without having to hit your head or without having to dock to get under the water. But they put the secondary shroud coming right across the weather deck. So when you get to this point, you're going to have to so the catch is, this is great because it's out of the way. This one, not so great because it's dead smack in the middle. So when you're walking down the weather deck, you have to dock to get under it in order to keep going aft to the cockpit. So, Jeanneau, if you're listening to this, find a different arrangements for that secondary. Another nice thing that Jeanneau did with this model boat is they went to the low profile hatches. So these hatches are flat with the deck, so you're not going to stub your toe or trip over them, so they're not a trip hazard. And you have a solar trickle charger for your batteries. They went with a steep angle on the Dodger, which is good for having the spray run off when you're going to weather. As you walk down, they added a handhold to hang on as you're walking down the ramp on the weather deck back to the cockpit. Now, this particular boat has a lot of mechanical assists, meaning you're going to have a lot of things that are going to help you manage the boat and stretch your sailing life. So it's going to have bow thrusters. You're going to have your anchor windlass back here. You have an electric windlass for your sheets, which is this one right here. You have your electronics when you're docking. You have your engine control and shifter here. So you're always going to be docking from the starboard side of the boat. In here, you're going to see that they have an electronic hydraulic system for the platform to take it up or down. Cockpit lights, ambient lights, table light, and there's a 12-volt car charger there. And you have the same ramp also on the port side. And you have also the electric winch for your sheets. You also have a electric primary winch. So a lot of mechanical assistance. So it should be pretty easy to navigate this boat and single-hand the boat using all of these levers that now you have available. The platform on the boat, like in all Jeanneaus, opens up, goes flat, and gives you a nice swim platform, and you have your swim ladder. This boat has the davit for your dinghy. Now, some people like to have the dinghy back here. Some people like to put the dinghy up on the forward deck when you're sailing. Usually, I prefer having it on the forward deck. If you take seas from the stern of the boat, this could be dangerous as it can come into the cockpit area. So better to have it forward and have it back here when you're sailing. Well, folks, that concludes our initial guide on whether this is the right boat for you or not. I hope this helped you gain some additional understanding or things that are important when you're looking at your new to you or your replacement boat. And with that, feel free to post comments or questions on the comment section below. Please subscribe to our channel. We are sharing all this information free of charge to help you make your decisions on your boat selections or boat projects. We did a lot of work on Reverie, and I'll talk about Reverie on one of the episodes. So with that, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.